meeting to order. It is Finance Committee, Tuesday, May 24th. We have a quorum present, and does anyone have any communications that they wish to share? Dave, I see you got the debt issue bid results in here in communication.
Correct. If you remember right, the City Council passed what's called a parameters resolution, giving me the authority to select the bids with the lowest true interest cost. That came in about just under 3.4%, and the highest bid was about 22 basis points higher than that. So we did have a good result from it. We've also got, I've got physical copies here, but I've got an email from Dave Erdman looking at the true interest costs for the state for the last 15, 20 years. And we are basically on par with 2008 rates. So 3.4 seems high, but in the history of things, it's been much higher in the past. So other than that, good news. We've signed the majority of the paperwork. I still got to get a couple signature documents, and then we can get everything out to Quarles.
So what was the one bit about? Maybe talk a little bit about what it means to have the downsized by 80,000 or the premiums received, and then how that translates into how the interest rate was affected based on that.
Well, the interest rate isn't affected too much by that result. What happens is because they had a higher premium that they offered, that allowed us to borrow less. So I guess conversely, as you pointed out, yes, we would have a lower true interest cost because we are borrowing less because of that. So we actually reduced the size of the bond from 5.480 million to 5.4 million. So Brett, you were correct that that does affect the true interest cost slightly. I don't know how many basis points it did, but it would have a somewhat of a reduction.
Okay, but overall, that everyone seemed to be happy with what we got out of it.
Yes.
Rates and.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, even
right,
Dave Erdman, as the capital finance officer for the state, he made a comment, and let's see if I could find it quickly here. His comment was that strong, and in the parentheses, maybe crazy bid from the winning bidder. So reading
wow.
between the lines, he thought it came in better than he had anticipated.
Okay, well, that's good news for us then.
Yep.
All right, did anybody have any questions about that information on the debt issue? All right, seeing and hearing none. Did anybody else have any other communications that they wish to share? All right, then I guess we can move into our set of reports.
The reports for the month of April are included in your packet. There were a couple comments that I made in red on there, but there really wasn't anything spectacular to highlight that I saw. So I'm going to open up the floor. Any questions anybody might have?
I did see the comments that you added in there and appreciate those added in. And as you alluded to, there didn't seem to be anything too material that would be like way out of line from what we would expect out of this set of reports. But if anybody has any questions that they wanted to ask about them, feel free. All right, nobody's talkative tonight, so that's okay, I guess. All right, Then we'll move on from the reports, and next is to approve the May 10th minutes from Finance, and I would entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Are there any other questions, edits, anything? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, no opposition, so those minutes are accepted and approved. Next item up is the R-114, the First Amendment to the Developer Agreement for the Parker Cole development, which again, remind me, this is the Isham Street extension, correct?
That is correct.
Got it?
If you remember at the last Common Council meeting, we modified the developer agreement for 51 West in regards to professional liability insurance for the developer. And Matt Dragney made a comment, we're probably going to have to do the same thing for Parker Cole. Well, lo and behold, we had that request. So this is basically just same exact topic. We're just adjusting the professional liability insurance out for the Parker Cole development.
That was a recommendation from Civic, right? Based on
Yes.
recommendation from them.
Well, CIVMIC, we couldn't, my understanding is we couldn't get a real clear answer. They were talking worst-case scenario, and they're saying, well, you always should have insurance. But this was the best understanding between AJ, Matt, and Rodney that we should be removing it.
Okay, but I mean, where did it come from this time? Or, who entered it, or who put it on the document? Where did, how did it get on the document?
It came from CIVMIC.
It did come from Civic, right?
The original recommendation came from CIVMIC, yes. And then there were multiple meetings with the attorney and risk management. I believe Tim was involved as the mayor also on the topic, and that's how it was kind of ironed out. My understanding is that they're also going to be having a meeting in the future to try and set some kind of standards going forward, what we want, so that we're not doing this back and forth all the time.
So you need a motion to remove.
Correct. The
From the working
motion would be to recommend removal of the professional liability insurance in the development agreement as drafted.
You got it. So moved.
Dave? Okay. Motion by Greg, is there a second on that?
Second.
All right, does anybody have any other questions right away?
I was just gonna let you know that, one of the things you'll be seeing tonight is there was a request from, RHD, to reduce one of his, bills from the city attorney. And part of that bill had to do with this conversation. But the reason I bring it up now is one of the things we're gonna do is we're gonna share some of the costs to get to this point between RHD and ROB. So we could lessen the burden on RHD, shouldn't have to bear the full weight of the costs for that work from the city attorney.
Got it. I did have one question, I guess Dave or Mayor, either one. Do they have, was there language as far as like what the terms in that of that insurance coverage would be that were provided at all?
The professional liability from the engineers? Yeah, that was provided to AJ. I don't know the amount off the top of my head, but she's satisfied, and we're still working through a few things for liability to make sure that the subcontractors have that, but we're working, most of those are working under the Parisi's umbrella. So we're still in the process of Bob and AJ are trying to make sure that those documents are in order as well.
Okay, I mean, I had a short conversation with Abby up at State Farm, and she was kind of suspicious about it at first of how it sounded. So she said that she'd be willing to just take a peek at the language of it to see whether it made sense or not.
I can pass that on to AJ.
Okay. All right, there was a motion and a second. Does anyone have any other questions about this? All right, hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, none opposed, we'll recommend this to council at the meeting later tonight. All right, our next item is a resolution authorizing the fire department to request grant funding for wildland and brush fire equipment.
Josh thought he might be able to attend tonight, but they were short-staffed, so if he's out on an ambulance call, he won't be able to attend. Basically, he's just asking permission from the council to go ahead and submit for the DNR grant for wildlife and brush fire equipment. Similar that they've done in the past, he'll be including the 50% cost in the 23 budget, or at least that's his intent at this point.
Yeah, and I remember doing this a couple of times prior, just one, I think, for this exact reason, and one for a slightly different one, and we got that approved all the way through council. I don't think we had didn't have any pushback on any of those. Did anybody have any initial questions about this? Ben, did you have any on this? I know you didn't see this not being on the committee, but do you remember this coming through council when we had approved this sort of setup here for the fire department?
I believe that was part of the budget discussion, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think
a
we
little
did
bit
have
curious.
Okay, go ahead.
A little bit curious about the foam system, because I know firefighting foam is a big part of the conversation around PFAS and
Yep.
forever chemicals.
Yep, for sure.
But I don't think anyone here is able to.
If I remember, I think we approached that subject the last time, and I think that their foam system does not have the PFAS in them.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
believe we asked that the last time.
yeah, they've gone away from that, and we actually still have some that we're trying to dispose of, but as you know, it's really costly to do that. And we've been working with our state representatives to try to, get a bill to the governor to sign to help all the municipalities that are sitting on buckets of this stuff.
Yep, for sure. Anybody have any other questions? Greg, you got anything
Yeah.
on this one?
I just wanted to make sure then that he's going to be putting that $7,200 in the CIP for his, I'm assuming it's going to be in the CIP budget for 2023.
My understanding is that is his intent.
Yep.
All right, any further questions on this one?
No, but I would say that, what we're gonna be running into on not only the fire, but a lot of the departments is, like everything else, we did our budget back in November with the best information we had at the time, and we know what's happened since then as far as costs. So there's gonna be some challenges, I'm sure, on some of these items that we thought we were covered and had enough contingency in, but, we're gonna be pushing them, I'm sure. So, we may be coming back to you at some point with some other items that might need to be adjusted.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a reality, so we just have to handle that as they come up.
Yeah, and we can give you an example of, we had one of the ladder trucks into the shop, and it was gone for several months, and we got it back, and they never did get one of the parts for it. So that's gonna have to go back to the shop at some point when the part comes in, and we can't just do it in-house. So, and, you know, when they're going through, they always find other items as well, and those things were more than likely not budgeted for, and even if they were, the price has gone up on them. So there's gonna be a few surprises. And we're just, like you said, just gonna have to deal with it and, you know, prioritize things, maybe defer some other things and make some budget adjustments for next year if we have to carry some items over.
Certainly cheaper to do a few more repairs on the truck than to get a new ladder truck, though.
Yeah, and, you know, they're having not only supply chain issues, up at Pierce, but they're also having, you know, personnel issues as well, just like everybody else, and they're trying to grow too. I drove up there this weekend, and they're actually putting up a new building. I don't know how they're gonna staff it, but I guess it's a good problem to have, and eventually they'll figure out a way, but, interesting times.
That's for sure. The only thing that will, or at least with Promega, will benefit with is I see that Exact is shedding 200 jobs all around, so that could be a benefit for our building filling. All right, if no one's got any further questions on that one, I would entertain a motion to recommend that.
I'd make the motion to recommend to council approval of resolution to.
No number.
Yeah, no number, for the expenditure of $7,225 estimated of the 2023 budget in the fire department.
All right, is there a second? And you're a designated seconder, because I think you're the only, the other one.
I can second if need be too.
Sure.
So can
Is
you,
that a second then, Mayor?
Sure.
Very good. All right, are there any other questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, aye.
aye,
Aye.
Or any opposed?
I did try to second that, but I think I had
No
my
worries.
meeting backwards.
No worries. I sometimes have two buttons I can mute with and I get them messed up. All right, are any opposed to that then? All right, hearing none, then we'll recommend that one up to council. Next item up is a resolution authorizing and directing proper city officials to write off 2019 to 21 delinquent personal property tax bills that have been proven to be uncollectible, totaling $1,348.32.
This is kind of a annual item that we have to do. We did it last year in March, but we've got businesses that are no longer in business, so there's nobody to collect from, so we need to write off the $1,348 balance.
pretty small, actually. I've seen a lot larger.
Yep, that's true.
Glad to hear that we're keeping it low.
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't too bad, I mean, with some of these going back to 2019, so.
I'll move to approve.
All right, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
And are there any further questions, comments? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, then and we will recommend that up to council as well. Next item up is a resolution to authorize contract with Municipal advisor regarding tax incremental district number 6 boundary expansion.
As you are aware, we're in the process of working with Emmy Roth to get that property. It has been annexed now. It's adjacent to the TID number 6 boundary, and fiscally it makes sense to enlarge or expand the borders of TIF number 6, get that property in there. That should help create a better cash flow for TID number 6 and get it into a positive balance. So we've used Ellers in the past for TIF districts. I'm happy with their work and would like to continue working with them on this one.
I think they did a good summary and analysis of the TIDs in the past, for sure. Pretty thorough, too. So, let's see.
1650.
Do we anticipate that we would have any further expansions on this, like on the side, on the north side that Emmy Roth is putting in? What about the other areas on there? Actually, are those annexed, or are those still not within the business park north?
They're still not within the Business Park North. We're allowed up to 5 expansions with the Department of Revenue, so we don't want to bite off more than we can chew at the beginning, because just to expand, we'd have to go through the annexation process for other areas too. So, and right now, we're not the owners of the property. The farmer or whoever owns that property would have to agree to it. Mo?
Yep.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I would
Go ahead,
say
Mayor.
the goal is, get this deal done, probably recalibrate the TIF schedule, see where it's at, see what else comes our way, and then see if we could get into a position where we would have the option of looking at purchasing land, and I'm not so sure that's something we're gonna wanna do. I mean, this deal here was kind of a good situation for us because we didn't have to invest any money and sit on it. But until we get into a positive cash flow, I don't think we're really in a position to be serious about having that conversation. So once we see how this shakes out, we can at least come back here and see whether or not we're in a position to even consider it, or if we have to do another deal to get into that position, and if that's even the strategy we want to take. We're actually having a meeting with MadRep tomorrow. They're kind of part of the WEDC, because one of the things that we learned through this process is that on their website they include what they consider shovel-ready lands in their website for potential businesses that might want to relocate to business parks throughout the region. And even though we have land available and it's basically shovel-ready, it's not included simply because it's not under city ownership. So we're hoping that we can, in the course of that conversation, convince them that this is an example of, we could have lost a business here in Dane County just on that alone. As the property management companies are looking on their website, they wouldn't even have seen this property. And it was one of our vendors that actually brought it to the attention of Emmy Roth. So we really actually caught a break there. So that's something that we want them to take a look at, because there's more property out there that could be developed, and it might be just as advantageous for the potential business owner to deal directly with the farmland than going through the city. And it keeps us from having to have holding costs on that property.
Hopefully they see that as a benefit in there, because I thought we moved fairly quickly to get through the annexation and all of that, the red tape portion of it, to get that property available to them.
Yeah, we did, and they're hoping on having a groundbreaking the first week in August, so if
Yeah,
everything,
that'd be awesome.
yeah. Because it really,
All right,
you know,
so-
you put a process in place, and you're working with a business that is motivated to hit a timeline, and they submit all the documents that we need. It doesn't take that long, it's a matter of months, and a lot of that you can do simultaneously, so you're not, you know, waiting for the urban service area amendment while you're annexing, you're working on that while you're getting that approval done, and it can all come together, and so far so good on this one, so, you know, I think it's a good example, and it's, as we look in the region, I think there's probably other examples other than Stoughton where this could be done, so that's what we're gonna encourage tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, it does help when the builder or when the company coming in already has a concept of what they want to do too.
Sure does.
All right. So one other question on that, or related to what I asked at first. So this then is our first amendment to this TIF 6 boundary. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so then we've got 4 more on there. Okay, all right. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember how many acres they have left. I want to say there might be 340s. I don't think there's more than 4, so we could conceivably do a 40 at a time if it got to
Sure.
that.
Now, is that, I know that the land, the farmland there is part of that. Is the barn and that's north of that, is that the Mo barn?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is still going to be in the township. So at one
Yeah.
point, you know, that might be a conversation that will be had. In fact, they've had conversations in the past when there was speculation that the land might be sold because we can't create an island around that one place.
Yeah.
You know, and at some point, you know, when they're fully retired, I think, you know, that might be part of the conversation.
Sure. I thought at one point either Martin Luther or Pumpkin Patch were eyeballing that property for to build a new facility for themselves.
Yeah, Pumpkin Patch built 5 acres next to, they bought 5 acres next to Nelson's out there.
Yep.
Closer toward the entrance of the park. And Pumpkin Patch, I think, was sold. And I think that the owners of that are still thinking about maybe doing something on that land here in the next couple of years when their
Yeah.
lease runs out with the school district at Yahara.
Yeah, which will be shortly, I think 24, 24, I think that one is up, I believe.
According to the survey, I thought it was tomorrow, next year.
Was it next
I
year?
think it's
It
next
could
year,
be.
according to the survey.
And that particular parcel, I do not believe is in the TIF district, and more likely it would be a tax exempt property anyway.
Yeah. All right, that's all getting ahead of ourselves
Yeah.
with this one at least.
Here's your history lesson for the night.
Perfect. All right, so does anyone have any questions related to this resolution? All right, now if none other, then I will entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
All right,
That's a motion,
motion and a second. Any other questions?
that's a motion to recommend to council. Approve.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we will recommend that, working with Ellers a little bit further on TID 6. All right, next bit up is discussion and possible action regarding the inconsistency between the CIP, capital improvement plan, and capitalization threshold. And this was in the policy, right? Yeah.
Correct. This is something I noticed as I was working on the fire department's motion for their CIP or planned CIP for the 23 budget. It's on your screen, but also the packet had it in there. First item that I noticed is that it says 15,000 or more. If you look at the second page, the financial statements say that capital items are 5,000 or more. So we got a discrepancy between there. And then back to the first page, it's also saying 15,000 or more for single items or a group of similar items. Well, just because you're purchasing televisions together at the same time doesn't mean that you've got one capital asset. You know, they can be independent. So that really doesn't follow the capitalization policy. And then when it says not budgeted every year, non-recurring, well, again, you can have things that don't happen every year or every other year. So I guess I'm just bringing it to the committee's attention that it's something that we may want to consider doing so that our accounting policies line up with each other.
And I think when we modified the CIP policy, I think it was with the intent that it was to give, with costs of different things going up, because I think they were all set originally at that $5,000 limit. And we wanted to give a little bit more flexibility and breathing room in order to not have to bother the committee for every nickel and dime. I think that was the intent of it. So, but I see that, you know, we've got an inconsistency in there. Maybe one of these, that $5,000 value may not have been updated in there. Dave, do you have some language in there that you think would be more suitable for that? Or how can we not clamp down too much, but also, you know, be mindful of what people are spending and how things are going with it?
Well, when I looked at the best practices for the National GFOA, they don't have a dollar value anymore, so they must have changed their policy on putting in dollars or percentages. I know that $5,000 is the same level that we had at Dodge for our capitalization threshold, but I know when I was at Milwaukee County, it was $50,000 before they even capitalize it. So given today's day and age, you know, maybe the $5,000 is low. You know, I'm comfortable with any figure that we want to use. The higher value you have, the less you've got to track things, but that's, of course, a policy for what people want to have control looking at.
I mean, I guess I think that $15,000 level is reasonable enough. I think we probably have, if we were to do kind of a statistic on how, you know, CIP items that are less than 15,000 or greater than 15,000, I think that we might be able to be sort of at a midpoint in there for just the number of asks.
So if I understanding the consensus right, you'd like me to write up some resolution so that the capitalization threshold is changing from 5 to 15 to be consistent with the CIP policy.
I think that would be reasonable.
Okay.
I don't know how others feel about that.
I'm in agreement. I do have a question.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm curious, this is capital assets are defined by the government as assets with the initial cost of more than $5,000 of general capital assets. What government is that? Is that the state, local, Or, county, what? Whose directive is that? Is that ours?
That's our, yes, it's our government. This
Okay.
is kind of boilerplate language that Baker Tilly has.
Okay.
So in this case, the government is the city.
Shouldn't we define that?
Pardon me?
Shouldn't we define that as saying the city?
I can certainly ask Baker Tilly to change the wording on this.
Yeah.
They do
I don't know, maybe it's me, but it just seems like it's, like I said, boilerplate and generic, and
They probably do it that way so that they don't have to continually
so they
change
don't
from
have to-
city to village to
Exactly.
county.
Yep.
But I can ask them to update ours.
I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but I think I'd like to see that.
And I guess,
I think it better defines it.
Yeah,
and I think as long as we're doing that, the $15,000 for infrastructure, in other words, a road, $15,000 for a road is like 0.1 mile or something like that. So
Pothole fill for that.
yeah, we probably should bump that one up to 50,000.
I would agree with that. I mean, roads are not cheap.
Okay, I will draft up something for the next meeting.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on that? All right, then we will wait and see what wording you get for the resolution based on our discussion here. Do we have, hold on. All right, we've got future agenda items on there, but then we've got other things below that.
And I did that on purpose in case
Okay.
you wanted to have a closed session for number 12 and 13.
I see. Okay, so our future agenda items are, we'll have treasurer reports late next month. And we still are carrying the special assessments idea as some of the other municipalities are changing their thoughts on that a bit. We'll see what comes out of that. And fund balance policy potential revisions. So a couple of things to think about into the future meetings.
My
Does
thought,
anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
my thought is on the fund balance policy, I would assume that we're going to, at the early July meeting, have the presentation from Baker Tilly on the financials. That'd probably be the best time to bring up the fund balance policy so that we know what's available and what the changes would mean financially.
Okay, I agree with that. Does anybody have any other things that they wish to see in future meetings? Things to talk about?
Well, one of the things we'll be working on is Dave's gonna put together a schedule for the CIP meetings. So, the committee is made up of the chairs from the standing committees. So obviously, you, Brett, and I believe Lisa is personnel, and Greg, are you chairing public safety?
Yes, yeah.
So Dave will be working on that probably in the next couple of weeks, at least trying to get the meeting dates set. So hopefully everyone will be able to attend, and then he'll be reaching out to department heads to gather their 5-year CIP requests and get their presentations put together.
That'll be another difficult one with trying to figure out where inflation's gonna land. I heard that April was a lot better than what March was. All right, so then we will move into the next item, which is refunding escrow for the purchase of Lot 4 of CSM number 15363, located in the city of Stoughton. And
Yeah,
that is going to go into council.
Yeah, I can kind of start it off. So our Realtor will be at council, Blake George. This is a
Yep.
lot that we've had a couple offers on. This one goes back a ways. We had a local business that was going to expand, And unfortunately, the contract that they were working on fell through. So they chose not to expand, and we had an accepted offer on this lot. So right now, we're holding, there's $5,000 in earnest money that's in holding. And we've accumulated about $2,700, I think it was, worth of attorney bills. Is that the right number?
That sounds right.
So really, the policy decision is, should we, should we keep the entire earnest money, or should we release some or all of it? And I think what, you'll hear at the council from our realtor is, if certainly the city has some expenses that we would like to recover, they would be more than likely TIF eligible expenses. And we also want to balance that with the relationship with our owner of the business out in the business park. Obviously, we want that person to continue to have a good working relationship with the city and be positioned to possibly expand in the future. And that's kind of what we're trying to balance here is what's the appropriate thing to do. I can't make that decision. The city, according to the city attorney and our realtor, agree that we're entitled to the money if we choose to, to take the full amount. It certainly would be within reason to do that, but the question is that what we want to do? And that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I think we did post it to go into closed session if you wanted to talk specifically about the business, but that's up to you guys.
Yeah, I think I'll
And
make,
this,
you want me to make the
go ahead,
motion?
Greg.
Should I make the motion to go into closed session?
Unless do you want to talk about specifics about
I think,
the business in particular, or just in general?
I think we need to get into some specifics, so I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think as long as you're in closed session, you'll probably want to talk about the other one too,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
sure.
So I don't know if you got to read both of them.
Well, it's the same, no, it isn't.
No, it is two
No,
different
they're
statutes.
different.
Yeah. All right, so we'll read them both. It says, the Finance Committee may convene in closed session per state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public property, investing of public funds, and conducting of other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The Finance Committee may convene in open session to discuss and take action on a subject matter discussed in the closed session. And I'd move for approval. So
All
I
right,
think we
is
should
there a
vote-
second for that?
Yeah, I think we should vote on that, and then we'll read the second one.
Second.
All right, and second by Ben, and technically, do we need to do it by a roll call vote, because the motion and the second are the quorum?
Either that or unanimous consent.
I think unanimous consent is fine.
All right, then I will call for unanimous consent.
You got it.
Aye.
All right, unanimous consent is reached. So
Okay,
we may go into, or well, let's read through the second one
Okay.
and then go into session after that.
Okay.
Brett, I'm going to have to lock the meeting. We've got one member of the public I will have to take out of the meeting, and that member of the public, who was my wife, has already taken off.
All right,
Okay, well, I'll read the second one, then we can close up.
Okay,
yeah,
Okay, the Finance Committee may convene in closed session per state statute 19.85, parent 1, parent G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, may be convened in closed session. The Finance Committee may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. I'd move for approval.
all right, is there a second for that?
Second.
All right, then I will call for unanimous consent. indicate by aye.
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 All right. That consent has been reached. We may go into closed session then.